The calm before the storm. The galaxy was at peace. At least, that's what most people believed. The Galactic Empire had ruled for centuries, its control stretching across star systems, planets, and civilizations. Their power seemed unstoppable. Their fleets, massive and well-equipped, had crushed any force that dared challenge them. In every corner of the galaxy, the Empire's symbol was known and feared. The galaxy's inhabitants lived in the shadow of the Empire, forced to obey its rules and serve its interests. No one dared to dream of a rebellion. The Empire had grown complacent. Its leaders, high-ranking officers, and generals believed they had seen it all. They thought nothing could shake their power, nothing could challenge their dominance. From the outer rim to the core worlds, the Empire was untouchable. There were rumors, whispers in the dark, that something was coming, something dangerous. But these rumors were always dismissed. They were nothing more than myths, right? But as time passed, strange events began to occur in the far reaches of space. In areas where the Empire's influence was weak, signals were detected. At first, they were dismissed as glitches or minor anomalies. But these signals grew more frequent. They seemed to originate from an area of space once considered completely uninhabited, a dead zone where nothing had existed for centuries. The scientists and intelligence officers working for the Empire were perplexed. What was causing these disturbances? Were they the result of some natural phenomenon? Or was there someone, out there? For the first time in years, the Empire's commanders felt a slight chill run down their spines. Could something be lurking in the shadows of the galaxy, waiting to strike? It was during this time that a quiet meeting took place within the heart of the Empire. The Grand Admirals, the top-ranking officers of the fleet, gathered in their high-security briefing room. A message had just come through, something they hadn't expected. It was a signal from Earth, from the once-thought-forgotten human homeworld. The message was simple, short, and cryptic. The fleet is awake. It made no sense. Earth had been lost to the Empire for eons. Humanity, in the Empire's eyes, was nothing more than a distant memory. After their failed attempts at colonizing the Outer Rim, humans had been forgotten. Their fleet, destroyed long ago, was nothing but a footnote in the Empire's long history. So why was this message coming through now? The admirals discussed the message, but none of them took it seriously at first. Humans? What can they possibly have left? One of them sneered. Their fleets are a thing of the past. Nothing they have could threaten us. Another officer, more cautious than the rest, spoke up. But what if we're wrong? What if the humans did manage to hide something we didn't know about? They've always been unpredictable. The room fell silent. For a brief moment, the weight of the possibility hung in the air. But quickly, the laughter and dismissals returned. "We've dealt with them before," one of the admirals said confidently. "We'll deal with them again, just like before." And so, the Empire went on as if nothing had changed. But deep in the forgotten corners of the galaxy, something stirred. The signal from Earth was only the beginning. It was a warning, but the Empire didn't know it yet. Far from the Empire's prying eyes, in a hidden sector of space, Earth's ancient fleet slowly began to stir to life. These ships, once thought to be relics of a bygone era, were not as powerless as the Empire thought. Beneath the surface of each ship lay technology that the Empire had never seen, technology that had been lost to time. The fleet had been waiting for this moment, the time when the galaxy would no longer be ruled by the Empire, the time when humanity would rise again. The fleet's command structure, though buried for millennia, was slowly coming back online. Every system was powered up, and the ships began to move once more. From the commanders of the fleet to the pilots, all were ready. They knew this was their moment. They knew that the Empire would not see them coming. For years, humanity had been watching. And now, it was their turn to strike. As the first ships in the fleet powered up, the galaxy would never be the same. The Empire's peace, a peace that had lasted for centuries, was about to be shattered. But the Empire didn't know it yet. They thought everything was fine. The stars were calm. The galaxy was at peace. But the storm was coming, and it would shake the very foundations of the Empire. Suspense. What exactly is hidden in the depths of space? What is humanity's fleet capable of? And most importantly, why have the humans waited so long to reveal their power? The calm before the storm was nearly over. And soon, the galaxy would know that humanity was not a force to be underestimated. The first encounter. The Empire had been living in the peace of their own delusion for centuries. They thought no one could challenge them. They had crushed rebellions, destroyed entire civilizations, and asserted their dominance across the galaxy. The Empire's fleet, commanded by the most skilled generals, was feared throughout the stars. They controlled everything, or so they thought. As the fleet began to activate and hum with life in secret, the Empire remained oblivious. They believed the galaxy was theirs, a vast and unshakable empire. But something unexpected was brewing in the dark corners of space. It wasn't until a random scouting ship near the edge of Empire territory noticed something strange. A faint signal was detected on their scanners. At first, it seemed like nothing, just another glitch in the system. But then the signal grew stronger, and the ship's sensors were overwhelmed with strange readings. These were not just random signals. No, they were something far more organized. Too organized for the usual galactic noise. The officer in charge of the scout ship, Captain Zoreth, was not one to ignore strange signals. His ship, a small but fast reconnaissance vessel, was used to navigating the far reaches of space, often in hostile territory. He had seen his fair share of odd readings, but this was different. This signal felt deliberate. He immediately sent the readings to the nearest Imperial base, a massive fleet command center stationed on the planet Neroth. The communication officer there received the signal with skepticism, but she forwarded it to the higher-ups without delay. To her surprise, it was received with alarming urgency. They didn't know what to make of the readings either, but the best minds in the Empire were now focused on the mystery. As the hours passed, the situation escalated quickly. A sudden shockwave rippled through the communication network, followed by a series of strange transmissions. The scientists at the base were baffled. They attempted to triangulate the source of the signals, but the readings kept shifting, as if the source was deliberately hiding. It was then that a senior officer, General Karen, ordered a small fleet of scout ships to investigate. This task force would be the first to reach the unknown source. And so, a group of 5 Imperial ships set off towards the coordinates of the mysterious signals. They were unaware of what awaited them. As the fleet of Imperial ships approached the coordinates, they noticed something strange on their sensors. There was a vast, hidden fleet ahead, too vast to be just a small group of renegade ships. These ships were massive, ancient, and well organized. They had the appearance of being dormant, as if they had been waiting for something. The ships didn't move. They simply sat there in the cold expanse of space, shrouded in silence. For a brief moment, the Imperial fleet was unsure of what to do. Was it an enemy fleet? Was it a trap? They couldn't tell. But as they moved closer, the situation grew clearer. These were not ordinary ships. And then, out of nowhere, a single ship powered up. Slowly, the ship began to hum with energy. Its thrusters ignited, and the vessel slowly shifted into position. The ship was a relic of the past, a reminder of humanity's forgotten power. The fleet commanders were stunned. They had never seen anything like it. The ship was old, its technology primitive compared to the Empire's modern systems, yet it seemed to possess some kind of strange power. Something about it felt dangerous. Suddenly, a message crackled through the Empire's communication channels. It was short, but the words were chilling. The time has come. The fleet commanders panicked. They had no idea who or what this fleet was, but it was clear they had underestimated something. With a growing sense of dread, the Imperial fleet opened fire, launching a barrage of missiles and energy beams. But the human fleet, though old, responded with a speed and power that defied expectations. The first shots landed, but the human ships dodged effortlessly, moving with a grace that seemed almost unnatural. The Empire's attacks failed to land. It was as though the enemy fleet was anticipating every move. And then, in an instant, the human ships retaliated. The Imperial fleet had never experienced anything like this. Massive energy blasts shot out from the human vessels, and before the Imperial ships could react, they were caught in the full force of the attack. The first Imperial vessel was torn apart in an instant. The others scrambled to retaliate, but it was too late. The human fleet was faster, more coordinated, and deadlier than anything the Empire had ever encountered. Within moments, the tide of battle shifted. The Imperial ships, once confident in their superiority, were now struggling for their very survival. General Karen watched in disbelief as his fleet was destroyed. His face twisted in a mix of anger and fear. "Who are these humans?" he demanded, his voice shaking. "Where did they come from?" The answer, however, was not something he could have ever prepared for. Humanity, long thought forgotten, had returned with a vengeance. The battle raged on, and the Empire's shock grew with every passing minute. They had never known that humanity's fleet, hidden for so long, was capable of such power. As the Imperial fleet was torn apart, the full scope of their mistake became clear. Humanity was back, and they were not the weak, defenseless species the Empire had long believed them to be. The storm had arrived, and the Empire would never be the same again. Suspense. As the battle unfolds, what secrets does humanity's fleet hold? How did they grow so powerful? And what will the Empire do next? Will this unexpected turn of events change the balance of power in the galaxy forever? The answers are coming, but the journey is just beginning. You said, the tides turn. In the aftermath of the first clash, the galaxy had begun to stir with a sense of unease. The once mighty Empire, which had long been a symbol of invincibility, was reeling from the unexpected ferocity of humanity's fleet. The destruction of one Imperial ship after another sent shockwaves throughout their military hierarchy. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. General Karen, who had commanded the fleet with unshakable confidence just hours before, was now holed up in the command center of his flagship, trembling with frustration. His mind raced, attempting to piece together the puzzle of the human fleet's sudden rise. How had they hidden themselves for so long? How had they grown so powerful without anyone knowing? "General, we need to regroup," his second-in-command, Captain Varric, advised, her voice tight with concern. She stood at his side, her eyes glued to the holographic displays of the battlefield. "We're losing too many ships, and the human fleet is unlike anything we've ever encountered." Karen's face was dark with anger and disbelief. "Regroup. It's too late for that. We're being decimated by relics." Relics. His voice cracked as he slammed his fist against the console. How did they get this kind of power? What's their secret? Varric hesitated before speaking again, her tone calmer now. Maybe we're not dealing with just relics. Maybe these are more than just old ships. Maybe the humans have something we don't understand." Karen's eyes narrowed. He turned to the tactical map, which was now flashing red with warnings as his fleet continued to crumble under the assault of the human ships. His mind was racing to formulate a new plan, but it was clear that the Empire's overwhelming numbers were no longer a guarantee of victory. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, the human fleet continued to show the true extent of its power. The energy pulses from their ships were far more advanced than anything the Empire had ever encountered. Despite their ancient appearance, these vessels moved with astonishing speed and precision. The humans, it seemed, had perfected their fleet over decades, maybe even centuries, while the Empire had grown complacent. The human ships' weapons were a different breed entirely. Each blast hit its target with deadly accuracy, causing massive damage to the Imperial ships. Even the once legendary Imperial shield technology was proving useless against the human fleet's advanced weaponry. It was clear that the Empire's reign of terror was coming to an end. As the battle continued, there was no sign of mercy from the human fleet. Every shot fired from their ships felt like a message sent across the galaxy. A message of vengeance, a message that humanity had returned, and they would not be ignored. Each Imperial vessel that fell to the onslaught became a symbol of the Empire's arrogance, and the price it would pay for underestimating the humans. The flagship of the Empire's fleet was under heavy fire, its shields flickering and its hull taking on damage. Inside the command center, General Karen paced back and forth, desperate for a solution. He tried sending a distress signal to higher command, but the interference from the battle made communication impossible. Time was running out. A new report came in from one of the surviving scout ships. They had managed to briefly engage the human fleet in close combat before retreating. The report was chilling. The humans are relentless. We couldn't even get a hit on their ships. They're moving in ways we can't predict, and their weaponry, it's like nothing we've ever seen before. Karen's mind raced as he digested the report. How could this be happening? Humanity had always been considered weak, inferior even, compared to the great galactic empires. Yet now, they had proven themselves to be a force that could not be ignored. It was as if they had been hiding in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And now, that moment had arrived. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, the human fleet remained eerily calm as they continued their assault. Their ships, though old, had an aura of menace. It was as if the ships themselves carried the weight of humanity's long-forgotten history, of battles fought and won, of civilizations that had been brought to their knees. The humans had a sense of purpose, an unstoppable drive that no one had expected. One by one, the Imperial ships were falling, and it became clear that the Empire's confidence was crumbling. As the human ships closed in on the remaining Imperial vessels, General Karen knew it was only a matter of time before his fleet would be wiped out completely. His eyes were filled with a mix of anger, fear, and disbelief as he realized the full extent of his defeat. Desperation set in. "Activate all remaining power," Karen ordered. "We have to stop them before it's too late." But the human fleet, relentless and determined, was already on the move. The battle had already been decided. And then, as if to confirm the inevitable, a new wave of human ships arrived. They emerged from the depths of space, a reinforcements fleet that seemed to appear from nowhere. It was clear that the Empire was outmatched. The humans had returned, and this time they were here to stay. Suspense. What is humanity's true plan? How will the Empire react to this complete shift in power? The battle is far from over, and there are still many secrets to uncover. As the war wages on, who will emerge victorious? Only time will tell. The human counterattack. The battle had entered its most intense phase. The Empire's once imposing fleet was now a shadow of its former glory, scattered and falling apart under the relentless assault of humanity's surprise counterattack. The remaining Imperial ships tried to regroup, but it was clear that the tide of the war had shifted. The humans had revealed their full power, and now there was no turning back. General Karen, his face taut with frustration, slammed his fist against the tactical display. The once confident Imperial forces were now fighting for their very survival. His mind was in overdrive as he searched for a solution. The unexpected emergence of humanity's hidden fleet had changed everything. For years, the galaxy had seen humanity as weak, insignificant, but now they had become an unstoppable force. "We need reinforcements now," Karen barked, his voice raw with urgency. But even as the words left his mouth, he knew it was too late. The reinforcements had already arrived, but they were not from the Empire. They were from humanity. All around him, his officers and commanders scrambled, issuing commands, trying to regain control of the situation. But no one could deny the truth. The human fleet was everywhere, surrounding them, outnumbering them at every turn. On the battlefield, the human ships moved with a precision and efficiency that left the Imperial forces in awe and terror. Their vessels, though ancient in appearance, seemed to be powered by a force far beyond the Empire's understanding. Their weapons unleashed hellish waves of destruction, ripping through the Empire's ships with ease. The humans had clearly been preparing for this moment for far longer than anyone had imagined. In the middle of the chaos, a strange calm took hold of the human forces. They moved together as one, their ships firing in perfect synchronization, covering each other as they advanced through the remnants of the Imperial fleet. The humans weren't just fighting, they were sending a message to the galaxy. As the human ships continued their devastating advance, the once proud Imperial fleet was disintegrating before their eyes. Karen's flagship, now surrounded by the remnants of his fleet, took a direct hit from a human ship's plasma cannon. The ship shuddered violently, and the lights flickered. The damage was catastrophic. "We're losing control, General," shouted Captain Varric, her voice filled with panic as alarms blared throughout the command center. "They've breached the outer shields. We're sitting ducks." Karen's thoughts raced. He had to think of something, anything, to turn the tide in their favor. But nothing he could do would change the fact that humanity had come to reclaim their place in the galaxy, and they weren't leaving without a fight. Back on Earth, the war councils and military leaders watched in stunned silence as the battle played out on their screens. They had known this day would come, but they hadn't expected it to unfold so quickly. Humanity had been preparing for years, gathering resources, building fleets in secret, while the Empire had continued its expansion, oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon. The hidden fleet that had now emerged from the depths of space was a symbol of humanity's strength. It was the product of countless years of lost history and ancient technology rediscovered. It was a weapon forged in the darkest corners of humanity's past, and now it had come to the galaxy's forefront. As Karen's flagship began to break apart, the last of the Imperial vessels were falling back in disarray. The humans, unstoppable and relentless, pursued them, driving their enemies further into the depths of space. The once mighty Galactic Empire, which had ruled for eons, was now on the brink of annihilation. The humans were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for vengeance, for justice, for the long-forgotten truth that had been buried in the annals of history. They had been wronged, and now they were reclaiming what was rightfully theirs. With the last of the Imperial fleet scattered across the battlefield, General Karen's last command was heard across the dying ship. "Retreat. Get us out of here." But the Empire's retreat was futile. Humanity's fleet followed, never letting up, as the remnants of the Empire disappeared into the void of space. For the first time in galactic history, humanity had won the battle. They had crushed the might of the Empire. As the human fleet regrouped, preparing for the next phase of their campaign, a message was sent across the galaxy. A message that would resonate through every corner of the galaxy, striking fear into the hearts of every empire, species, and civilization that had once dismissed humanity as weak and insignificant. Humanity had returned, and they would never be ignored again. Suspense. The Empire had fallen, but the war was far from over. What would humanity do next? How would the galaxy react to the rise of a once-forgotten species? The future remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity was here to stay, and they would not stop until they had taken their place at the top of the galaxy once more. The aftermath of victory. The silence that followed the destruction of the Galactic Empire's fleet was deafening. The echoes of war faded into the endless void of space, leaving behind a graveyard of broken ships and fallen empires. The human fleet, though victorious, did not celebrate. Instead, there was a quiet determination, a knowing that this was only the beginning. General Karen, now a prisoner of war, sat in the holding cell of a human warship. His once proud uniform was torn, his face bruised, and his mind consumed with the bitter reality of his defeat. How had it come to this? The Empire, which had ruled over the galaxy for eons, had crumbled in the face of a human fleet that had once been forgotten. How had they been so blind? Outside the cell, the hum of the human ship echoed as it cruised through space, moving toward its next objective. There was no pity in the eyes of those who passed Karen's cell, only a cold, calculating focus. The humans had won, and now they would ensure that their victory was permanent. No longer would they be seen as the underdogs. No longer would they be dismissed as weak. The galaxy would know their name. Meanwhile, the rest of the galaxy was reeling from the consequences of the humans' return. The Empire's allies, once proud and powerful forces, had now been forced to confront their own vulnerabilities. The news of humanity's fleet and their overwhelming power spread like wildfire. Other galactic empires, once confident in their superiority, were now questioning their own future. The balance of power had shifted, and no one knew what the consequences would be. On Earth, the leaders of the new human government met in a secure war room, far from the reach of any prying eyes. The war was not over, not by a long shot. The Empire had been defeated, but there were still remnants of its power scattered across the galaxy. The true test was just beginning. Would the galaxy accept humanity as an equal, or would they attempt to destroy them, fearing the rise of such a powerful force? In the midst of this uncertainty, Admiral Seraphine, one of humanity's top commanders, stood before the Council with a map of the galaxy projected before her. Her finger traced the lines of human-controlled space, the path the fleet had taken, and the enemies they had defeated. She turned to the Council, her face stern and determined. "We have done the impossible," Seraphine said, her voice calm but unwavering. "But the real war has yet to begin. The galaxy will not forget what we've done, and they will come for us. We must prepare." The Council members exchanged tense glances. The victory over the Empire had been significant, but it was only one battle in a much larger war. Humanity had shown its power, but they had also painted a target on their back. The galaxy was vast, and many of its inhabitants would not be content with the humans' sudden rise. "The Empire is gone, but their allies remain." Another council member spoke up. "We cannot underestimate the remaining power in the galaxy. They will retaliate." Admiral Seraphine nodded gravely. "We know. That is why we must consolidate our power and prepare for the battles ahead. The galaxy is not going to let us walk away unscathed, but we will not back down. Humanity has proven its strength today, and we will continue to prove it." While the council discussed their next steps, Karen's mind raced. In his captivity, he had seen firsthand the human strength and resolve. He had heard the stories, but nothing could have prepared him for the brutal reality of their power. It was clear now that humanity was not a race to be underestimated. They were warriors, fighters, survivors, and they would stop at nothing to secure their place in the galaxy. Karen's thoughts turned to his own future. Would he be executed as a symbol of the Empire's fall? Or would he be used as a pawn in the humans' future plans? He didn't know, but what he did know was that the Empire was no more, and in its place, a new power was rising. One that the galaxy would have to reckon with. Back on Earth, a message was being sent to the rest of the galaxy. A message that would reverberate through every corner of the cosmos. Humanity had shown its hand. They were no longer the silent observers. They were now players in the grand game of galactic politics, and they would not be pushed aside. The message was simple. Humanity is here, and they will not be ignored. As the human fleet moved deeper into the galaxy, the once untouchable galactic empires began to tremble. The humans had proven that they were capable of anything. And as their fleet grew stronger, as their influence expanded, the galaxy would have to make a choice: stand against humanity, or accept their rise as the new rulers of the stars. One thing was certain: the humans would never be the underdogs again. Suspense. As Karen sat in his cell, awaiting his uncertain fate, he couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was on the cusp of an entirely new era. What would humanity's next move be? Would they take advantage of their newfound power and dominate the galaxy, or would they face the consequences of their rise? Only time would tell, but one thing was clear. Humanity's return had changed everything, and the galaxy would never be the same. The gathering storm. In the vast silence of space, humanity's fleet moved forward, unstoppable and resolute. The once great galactic empire had fallen, leaving behind nothing but debris and shattered dreams. The galaxy, which had once looked down upon humanity as a primitive race, was now forced to reckon with the sudden rise of this new powerful force. The human fleet had ignited a firestorm of fear and uncertainty throughout the stars. Back on Earth, Admiral Seraphine stood before the command center, eyes fixed on the holographic map that sprawled out before her. The map showed countless enemy fleets, some already preparing for a confrontation, others scrambling to fortify their defenses. The once comfortable positions of the galactic superpowers were now under siege. Humanity had struck hard and fast, but the war was far from over. Seraphine's fingers hovered over the map as she addressed her crew. The destruction of the Empire was only the first step. We've made our mark, but the real challenge begins now. The galaxy will not rest until they've regained control. We've earned their fear, and that makes us both their target and their enemy. Her voice was steady, but there was a sense of urgency in her tone. We must expand our alliances. We need more ships, more resources, and most importantly, more fighters. Humanity's future doesn't rest in the past. We need to build the future. The council room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. The challenge ahead was immense, but humanity had proven they could rise to any occasion. Seraphine, though grim, was determined. The war was only just beginning, but humanity had the will, the strength, and the technology to succeed. The question was whether they would be able to hold their ground against the full might of the galaxy's remaining forces. In the heart of the galaxy, the remnants of the Galactic Empire's allies met in secret, their fear palpable. They had heard the reports, seen the destruction, and now they were on the defensive. For years, they had enjoyed their superiority, mocking humanity as a race of weaklings. But now, they were confronted with a truth they could no longer deny. Humanity was far stronger than they had ever imagined, and it was only a matter of time before the humans made their next move. The leaders of these galactic factions gathered around a holotable, their expressions grim as they discussed how to deal with the human threat. General Karen, now in the hands of the humans, was still alive but kept under heavy guard. His knowledge of the Empire's strategies could prove invaluable, but there was little trust in his cooperation. The humans were not willing to rely on him alone to secure their victory. "We must strike before they grow stronger," one of the alien leaders said, his voice cold. "We cannot afford to let them consolidate power. They've already proven they can destroy us," another leader responded, shaking his head. "But we cannot let fear paralyze us. We have no choice but to unite and attack." It was clear that these former enemies of the Empire were now united by a common goal: to stop humanity. But unity came with its own set of challenges. Each faction had its own agenda, and as their discussions grew heated, it became evident that while they all feared the rise of humanity, they were far from united in how to respond. Some wanted to strike immediately, while others advocated for a more strategic approach, waiting for the right moment to unleash their combined forces. Back on the human side, Admiral Seraphine was well aware of the tension building in the galaxy. She knew that the next phase of the war would require more than just brute strength. It would take diplomacy, strategy, and cunning. While humanity's fleet was powerful, they were still outnumbered and outgunned in many regions of space. The key to their survival and eventual dominance lay in forging new alliances and consolidating their position. Seraphine's thoughts were interrupted by a call from her intelligence officer. "Admiral, we've intercepted a message from the Galactic Council. They're preparing to launch an all-out offensive against us." She stood still, her eyes narrowing as the gravity of the situation set in. The offensive was coming sooner than expected, but it was not just an external threat they needed to worry about. There were internal divisions within humanity itself, factions that disagreed on the path forward. Some believed in diplomacy, others in complete domination. Seraphine knew that to succeed, they would need to present a united front. "We will need to fight back, but we will also need to be smart," Seraphine said, turning toward her command staff. "Our next moves must be calculated, not rushed. We have the advantage, but only if we can maintain control of the situation." The tension was palpable, and there was no turning back now. The galaxy had already seen what humanity was capable of, but they would soon learn whether humanity's will to survive was stronger than the forces arrayed against them. Far across the galaxy, Karen could only watch in silent frustration as the humans prepared for their next phase. He had once been a part of the machine that ruled over the galaxy, but now he was a prisoner, his fate in the hands of those he had once considered inferior. The irony was not lost on him. The Empire had underestimated humanity, and now the galaxy itself would learn just how costly that mistake had been. Suspense. As the pieces of the galaxy's fate slowly fell into place, both sides braced for the coming storm. Would humanity's fleet continue to crush their enemies, or would the galaxy rise up in a desperate bid to restore its former power? The battle for control of the stars had only just begun, and every move would have monumental consequences. The storm unleashes. The calm before the storm was over. As the human fleet moved forward with unrelenting force, the galaxy's superpowers had no choice but to act. The carefully laid plans of the Galactic Council were no longer just theories. They were now in motion. The battle for control had begun. Admiral Seraphine stood on the bridge of the flagship, staring at the stars beyond. The command room was filled with activity. Officers were shouting orders, technicians were monitoring their systems, and the hum of the ship's engines was a constant reminder of the battle that loomed ahead. But through all the chaos, Seraphine remained composed, her focus unyielding. "Admiral, we've received confirmation. The enemy fleet is preparing for an assault," came the voice of her intelligence officer, breaking the tension in the room. The calm before the storm had been replaced with the harsh reality of war. Her eyes narrowed as she absorbed the news. "How many ships are we facing?" "Reports indicate nearly twice the size of our fleet. They're coming in full force," the officer replied, his voice filled with a note of concern. Seraphine didn't flinch. "We've faced worse odds before. Prepare our forces. I want to make sure the first wave hits them hard. We can't let them gain any ground." The officer nodded and immediately turned to relay the orders to the rest of the crew. As the preparations began, Seraphine couldn't help but reflect on how far humanity had come. Not long ago, they were considered nothing more than an afterthought in the grand scheme of the galaxy, and now they were preparing to challenge some of the most powerful empires in existence. "Status of the Alliance fleets?" Seraphine asked, her voice steady, but there was a sense of urgency behind it. "We've confirmed that the Allied fleets are in position. They'll follow our lead in the initial strike. We're ready to go." Seraphine nodded. The combined forces of humanity and their new allies would make a formidable force. But even with all their preparation, the sheer scale of the battle to come weighed heavily on her mind. The galaxy had been silent for far too long, and now it was about to erupt into chaos. The enemy fleet appeared on their scanners, a monstrous mass of ships gliding toward them. The ship's sensors began to pick up their immense size, more than enough to overwhelm them, even with their combined forces. "It's time," Seraphine said quietly. "All units, prepare for battle." The tension was palpable as the human fleet and their allies advanced. The first wave of enemy ships moved forward, their weapons ready, but they had no idea what awaited them. "Launch the first wave of fighters," Seraphine ordered. "We'll hit them hard and fast. Make them regret ever underestimating us." The fleet launched into action. The vastness of the battlefield was a blur as fighters and capital ships clashed in a whirlwind of fire and destruction. The sound of lasers, explosions, and the roar of engines filled the air as the human forces engaged the enemy. The enemy fleet, larger and seemingly more advanced, was forced to scramble in response, but humanity's fleet was quick, efficient, and fiercely determined. As the battle raged on, the human forces continued to dominate the battlefield, sending waves of destruction toward the enemy ships. The tide of the battle was shifting in their favor, but it wasn't over yet. The enemy, realizing the full force of humanity's might, began to regroup. They retaliated fiercely, hoping to slow the human advance. "We've got them on the run," one of the commanders shouted from the bridge. Seraphine allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. The strategy had worked. The human fleet had struck first, hard and fast, giving the enemy no time to regroup or retaliate. But the battle wasn't over. The tide could change in an instant. "We can't let up. Push forward. We're almost there," Seraphine commanded, her voice filled with determination. Her mind raced as she watched the battle unfold before her. The sheer scale of it was overwhelming, but humanity had been underestimated for so long. They were no longer just a fledgling species. They were a force to be reckoned with. The human fleet pressed forward relentlessly, with each ship playing its part in the grand strategy. The enemy, realizing they couldn't stop the onslaught, began to retreat. But the human fleet was not about to let them escape. "Cut off their retreat," Seraphine ordered. "We finish this now." The final push began. The enemy forces, broken and disoriented, struggled to maintain their formations. The human fleet, unyielding in their pursuit, surged forward like a tidal wave, crashing down on the enemy remnants. The once mighty enemy fleet was torn apart, ship after ship falling to humanity's superior tactics and technology. The battlefield was filled with debris and the aftermath of the violent clash. The human fleet had emerged victorious, but Seraphine knew that this was only the beginning. The victory felt sweet, but the fight was far from over. As the dust settled and the echoes of battle faded, Seraphine stood once more on the bridge, watching as the last remnants of the enemy fleet disappeared into the void. The galaxy would never be the same again. The Galactic Empire, once the dominant force in the universe, had been shattered. And now, humanity stood at the forefront of this new galaxy, ready to claim their place among the stars. The storm had come, and humanity had not only survived, it had triumphed. Suspense. As the human fleet claimed victory, the question remained, what would the next challenge be? What other threats lay hidden in the dark corners of the galaxy? The human race had proven its strength, but in the vastness of space, enemies were always lurking, waiting for their chance to strike. Would humanity continue its rise, or would new dangers emerge to challenge their dominance? The galaxy's future remained uncertain, and the next chapter of humanity's story was yet to be written.